Hi guys, is it working? This is not the first time that I got on Facebook Live and forgot that in my mobile device, I can't do it the long way, which was my plan. So I'm adjusting. Welcome, hi. I also wanted to see comments. You know what I'm gonna do? Give me just 1 second to pull up my iPad. And this is the book we're gonna be looking at tonight. I may do some sketching too, if we go that route. So if you show up, please pipe in, speak up, share your questions and ideas, because that will influence how the talk goes. And these usually run about 45 minutes to an hour. All right, so it's gonna take me a second to pull up, and that's good because that kind of gives time for people to come in. Oh, I have a moment where I can share it to group too, so I'm just gonna do that really quick. And, okay, open up turn off my volume. Can you hear me? Can you see me? I see a heart, so that's good news. But I can't see who's here or that anyone is here, but that's okay. Thank you for your support. So we're going to talk about the book. If you don't know, I'm Laura Volpintesta. I'm the founder of Fashion Illustration Tribe. I've been teaching fashion design and illustration from technical to portfolio to model drawing to beginner to graduating at Parsons School Design in New York City for 20 years. It's working. Okay. And let me just make sure that I can see comments. Hi. Say hello. Okay, now I can see my comments. I believe I'm on the right page. I have to check one more time. Hi, Patty. Okay, that's a very, very good sign. Okay, can I see comments? I think yes. All right, swipe left to reveal comments. That's more like it. Okay. So today we'll take a chapter from the book. I'm taking the first suggestion I got when I asked, which was about negative shape. Does anyone know what negative shape is? And do you want to offer up any thoughts or questions about it? I haven't looked at the chapter yet. Hi, Patty. Greetings, Arizona. I woke up in New Jersey. I spent the afternoon in New York, and now I'm in Connecticut. And yesterday I was in Boston, so it's been a crazy few days. That's because my house is in pieces while they're reflooring. I had a little flood, so okay. Hang on a second. Yeah, this isn't like the angle or the view that I was hoping to get. Okay, whatever. Content is queen. Okay, Language of Fashion Design came out, I think, in 2013. I had been afraid to take this book offer from the publisher, but I had been praying. I had a little baby, and I just reduced my teaching load. And I've been praying for as much work as possible that I could do from home. Still nursing the baby. Hi, Doreen. And so when they offered me to write this book for their Language of series, I couldn't say no. And it was a journey. Oh, you can really see a lot of my table here, but what can I do? All right, it's a cute table, right? With all that fruit on it. I'll put a sketchbook here so we can sketch as we go. All right, you can also see the paint that came off the ceiling. Okay, so negative shape, let me look it up in the book. So the Language of Fashion Design book is 26 chapters. That's for 26 principles, like an alphabet. 26 principles. Okay, and you don't have to have the book to enjoy, but you know, it's nice to have, and I'm so excited that you have it. So the chapter on negative shape is on page 100. Ooh, that's a cool number. Nice round number. And okay, so in negative shape, before we start, I want to mention the negative shape is both a pure design element. So we're going to talk about that first, like regardless of fashion, just design, drawing, visual, what is negative shape? Then we're going to talk about, so that's like a general definition. Then we're going to talk about how it pertains or applies to creating fashion art or fashion sketches. And we're also going to discuss how it can be used in your fashion designs, or how you can notice it being used in fashion pieces that you see around you. And then we'll also talk about how it can play out in a layout, like a presentation of sketches or designs. It's definitely something. I love it when Patty and Doreen are both here. You guys have a nice vibe together. All right, so I'm looking at myself on 2 different cameras and 2 different screens, and I look different on both. I definitely wish I looked like I look on this one and not that one, but it's not about how I look. It's about the book. Page 100, negative shape. So I'm going to read the definition because, oh, and also about the book is there's 26 principles of fashion design. I had to pick what I thought was most important. And it also, yes, we will all be in person, and it's going to be a blast. We're going to have like an event, and it's going to be unforgettable. Negative, it's going to be intimate. It's going to be like a little mastermindy thing. We're going to spend a day or a weekend, and it's going to be crazy. All right. So there's also 26 biographies in this book, and I want to mention that because, thank you. Me? It must be me. You guys can't see each other, right? Thank you. There are 26 biographies because each chapter also has a biography with it. All right. So negative shape. Basically, it says in the dictionary, a background or ground shape seen in relation to foreground or figure shapes. Now, again, that's one of those things you read and you're like, okay, yeah. And this is where the beauty of teachers comes in my own experience as well. Having a teacher not only explain it to you, but then take it into action with you, right? So negative shape, here's how I would describe it if I wasn't reading the dictionary definition. It's like we look at things, and this is, I love, my favorite thing about starting to learn art and design was how I realized in my first year of art study that your perceptions about anything can change forever when you introduce new thoughts. And now, if someone introduces thoughts that don't make you feel good or help you, don't take them on. But when people introduce you to new thoughts that expand your experience of life, make your eyes open, make you feel empowered, make you feel whatever, something good, roll with them. But the thing that I really learned in art school was that your perception can change, and that changes your life. It actually changes your experience in the world. So negative shape is that you'll often hear me saying all the time in my videos, but some of you might be new to these. So like I'll say how one of the biggest issues with people having a hard time drawing is that they have a pen or a pencil and they have a white piece of paper, and that the association is so powerful from early childhood that pencil and paper means alphabet and means writing, A, B, C, symbols that we need to do perfectly in order to make things. Well, if that's your setup of association with these things, you're going to have a really hard time drawing what you see, because what we see is always radically different from the symbols for those things. If you think nose, and Patty knows this because we had a coaching session all about faces the other day. The idea of the concept of a nose and then drawing a nose is 2 completely different experiences, right? Especially all the different angles look different and all the different people look different. So when we draw symbols and we don't draw what we really see, don't worry, this is all going somewhere. It was about symbols. Okay, so honestly, I lost my train of thought. Give me 1 second. Because how does that tie in with negative shape? So when we look at things, we are already looking at a world of symbols. Tree, dress, shoe, human body, woman, cloud, flower pot. But one way, a powerful way that we can draw more accurately is to build our awareness not of the thing, because that is the thing we are most likely to symbolize. Flower pot, thimble, earring, circle. With negative shape, you don't look at the shape. You don't look at the thing. You start to really, really, really heighten your awareness of what's around the thing. So the best example I can give you right now, because we are face to face, is me, woman. Okay? What if you shift your vision from me to the shapes around me? So maybe if you squint and you start to notice the background more than you notice me, that's the negative shape, right? Because the shape is my head, my shoulders, my arms, me, my body, me, my hair, earring, me. But if you allow yourself to flip your perception and start to look at the shape surrounding the thing. So now I'm looking out the window in front of me and I see tree. And I see it. And I already start to symbolize tree. A tree has a trunk and has leaves. But when I think about all of the shape around the tree, the background becomes the shape. And the tree becomes invisible almost. Okay, so you're flipping your perspective. Now, how does that play out in fashion design? You'll see. But the main thing I want to tune you into, if there's one thing I wish you could leave today, it's always, before we even get to the fashion thing, that design, that flip in your brain of you're not looking at the thing anymore. You're looking at what's around the thing, the negative shape, the opposite of the shape. Oh, and it changes the way you see. And every time you can change the way you see, you will draw more accurately. And drawing accurately is not necessary, but it's helpful and it's truthful and honest. And it's very helpful, because when our brain gets in there and our brain gets in the way and starts saying, that's a tree, that's a woman, well, that's when we start to draw very symbol-y looking things that don't have as much vital life and truth in them. And I'm just going to read a little bit from the first page here in the book, and then we'll go look at pictures. So that's the principle, the general definition of negative shape. Now we'll start to look about how that can apply to your model drawing and any of your drawing. We already started to talk about that. And then we're also going to talk about how you see it in fashion garments. What it says right here is negative shape, however subtle, connotes invasion. Huh. That's interesting. Did I write that? Invasion. The fashion garment invades space with its silhouette. So if you think of someone standing on a runway and whatever she's wearing, a long full gown or a narrow pantsuit with puffy shoulders, the silhouette breaks the negative shape. Hi, Marcia. The garment, the silhouette, you see the silhouette and you want to capture it, but if you think about all the shape around it, you'll get more. Hi, Ivo. Hola. You'll get a new way to get more accurate about that shape, because you'll be looking around it. So the fashion garment invades space with its silhouette, cutting into it, or on the opposite end, a cutout can invade the garment, and that's what we're going to see in the pictures today. The cutout invades the shape of the garment, cutting away from it and exposing layers or skin. So even in the garment I'm wearing right now, if you think about this garment as being a whole, complete shape, right? Maybe the neckline is a cutout that's invading what we would call a whole shape. Right? Or the short sleeve, if you just thought about this covering my whole body and then cutting away, right? These become negative shapes, because the dress is the thing. The negative shape is the part that isn't the thing. My favorite thing is that after you learn something like this, if it's new to you, you start to see it in action as you look around. So one of the first things in the chapter is an illustration by Carol Mongo, who was my first fashion illustration teacher in Paris, Parsons, Paris. And this is one of her illustrations. The reason I used this particular one is because it has a black background with a white figure. So it really makes it easy to see the negative shape. The negative shape is all black, right? And then the illustration itself is mostly skin toned. And notice how the black and white, the positive and the negative shape, play off each other. There's kind of a yin yang balanced. There's like a balance to this page. And also, I'll give you a drawing tip right now that you can use all the time in model drawing. You know, you'll be drawing someone with their arm on their hip or their arm in the air. In this case, the model's got her hand near her face. The negative shape is this little triangle inside, right? Shoulder, side of face, side of hand. You are more likely to draw this model accurately if you pay very, very close attention to drawing the shape that isn't her than if you think head, shoulder, hand. All right, so drawing the shapes around the model, very useful tool. Okay, then the featured designer in this chapter was Alix Gray, Madame Gray. I won't read the biography of her right now, but she does amazing things with bias cuts in Paris. And the dress, who can tell me where the negative shape is on this dress? And there is more than one answer. But why do you think I chose this piece? So imagine we want to draw this dress without drawing the dress. Imagine we were only painting the model's skin and the wall behind her. What's left over would be the dress. And that's how negative shape gives you an opposite approach to drawing something. So the most obvious negative shape in this dress is the cutout, right at her heart center, which is cool, a diamond. But then it's also really beautiful to show how the negative shape between the straps, the cutout at her chest. Thanks, Doreen. Yes, it showed up late. I forgot that Facebook has like a little lag. Her skin. Yes. I love to hear from you guys. Yes, yes, yes. So imagine if you came to draw this, the straps. Yes. And imagine also how, you know, how beautifully that those negative shapes create a pattern on her body. And also that maybe the sweetheart neckline of the bustier. I was thinking too how if you had to draw her hairstyle, how helpful it would be to look at this shape. Well, her hairstyle and her shoulder and everything, but how this is a shape, one big variation on a triangle. So like in general, this shape is a triangle. And then more specifically, it has all these contours cut out of it. And then how interesting is it? Okay, I'm going to push this a little farther. How on one side, we have a diagonal feel in this photo. And on the other side of this photo, we have a very, Patty, her hair. Yes, I got to ask you guys more questions because I love getting your perceptions back. This side is stable. It's just straight up and down. And the other side is more diagonal. So that creates a beautiful contrast. And I've got to tell you, when I wrote this book, me and all my, I love reading, you know, about like duality and non-duality and one love and all this stuff. But like in fashion, in this whole book, I realized that, I really realized in the writing of the book that contrast is where the energy is, always. Like that thing I just showed you with the diagonal and the stable is like everything that's in here, it only has value because of the contrast it has with other things. So let's take another look. Here's a really fun way that negative shape is playing out in these designs. What do you think? So these are two knitwear sweaters. by, oh wait, I don't have my glasses on. Guy Laroche, Paris. I didn't use a lot of Parisian designers in my book because the runway models were consistently extremely thin, and I just, you know, there's a lot of things I took into account when I wrote this book, but these necklines are super interesting. So again, it's one thing to notice the neckline, but if you really pay attention to just her skin, you start to notice the shapes of skin that are left by those cutout effects and how they create asymmetry. Asymmetry is a topic we talked about the other week. So it would be really fun to take this exercise and apply it to using negative shapes. Maybe take some existing sketches you've already done or really simple shapes like a tank dress and start negative shaping all over it. You know, see what kinds of variations you can create with that. One of my favorite designers who does cutouts is someone I've illustrated a few times on Instagram. She's called by Natasha Bacco, and she's an African designer in Paris, and she has a beautiful mix of like Parisian plus African influences. She usually uses very tiny African prints with nice tailoring and always working with cutouts in a beautiful way. Her name is Natasha Bacco. And this is a former student of mine, Cheryl Koo, who's actually an extremely talented illustrator, extremely creative and a talented illustrator. And she also she used to do some, I think, very graffiti inspired art. And she's also a dancer. And I can't tell because, again, I forgot my glasses, but I think that's her modeling her piece. But you see how the negative shape, why do you think I chose negative shape? This one, I just spilled something. This one for negative shape. It's because of this shirt tail detail, you know, and how that makes a play on her leg and creates a really interesting silhouette. You like to pick that one? Oh. Thank you, Patty. I'm very excited about this one, actually. I remember clear as day the day I taught that class. It was in one of my favorite classrooms in one of the old buildings at Parsons. And the model was there. I forget what she was wearing. She may have been wearing black. And she had dark brown skin, but I decided to leave her clothes pure white and only draw her and not the clothes. Some of you who have been with me for a long time may remember I used to have a lesson called Everything But the Girl, and it was all about learning how negative shape can help you improve your model drawing. And so this is a great example of that. It's so tiny in the book. But yeah, I just took my brush with a skin tone. And an exercise like this is another tip for when you're doing exercises. I have a lot of exercises in my Model Magic online course, but the hood and the gathering at her bottom. Ah, yes, Doreen. This gathering creates create great negative shapes. Yes, they create the silhouette totally through construction detailing. When you do an exercise like this, so regardless of the model's skin color, I will often use, if I'm doing exercises in oil pastel or gouache, which I often recommend because of what I told you earlier about how pens and pencils, we tend to get very perfectionist and drawerly when we use them. So I often have my students, especially in the beginning, work with dark paint. So dark Van Dyke brown, royal blue, or black, usually. Or I have them use really soft, crumbly, squishy oil pastels because these are inexact media. They're so inexact because you cannot, hi Amy, you can't be precise and perfect when you work with these tools. So it sets you off the hook right away. You're off the hook. You can't do it perfectly, so you start to be a little more risky and free and playful in your work. And I'm constantly tricking you into that when you study with me. But so here we use gouache, and we used a dark color. And the reason why I dark is because imagine you do this exercise with yellow. You're not going to feel it. If you do it with light orange, peach, you're not going to feel it. Baby blue, But when you do it in dark brown or black or royal blue, something with a strong contrast with your paper, you are really, really going to feel what you've done. You're going to feel the effects of what you've done. This is just a few strokes, and yet let's see, can you tell? You can really, really, really quickly feel and know what was going on in that outfit without even showing the outfit. So to me, this was the best description of what negative shape could be that I could put in there. And then here's another example of negative shape, this beautiful swimsuit with cutouts. And even cutouts like space between the straps. And then if you think of her body as a whole, because our brain is doing so many things before we start to draw. So when your brain sees a body, it's already making the body whole. Do you know what I mean? This is why we react when we see someone with one arm or, a missing eye or something. It's because our brain is constantly exerting its need to control and understand onto things. Hi, Heather. So let's say my brain is looking at this body. It's already seeing that body as whole. There is no way that my brain is like, oh, an arm and a neck and a little piece here and an arm. No. My brain is already off and running before I start to draw. And that kind of awareness is what's going to help you. Oh, I have to plug something in. It's going to help you be aware of that. And it's so funny because years later, I noticed our whole life is like that. There are all kinds of the tattoo is cool, right? And that brings us back to the asymmetry that we talked about last time. Asymmetry and asymmetry. Even this pattern is asymmetrical because the colors from left to right change. So that's cool, right? Yeah, so when you start to become aware of the unconscious programs that your brain is already running off and doing before you even lift a pencil or make a decision or do anything in life, the more you can, one more thing. Gives you a little more control. So as far as model drawing goes, and this is back to what we talked about before, you can also use negative shape to help you when you draw by looking at, for example, the shape between her arm and her figure. Just looking at this shape by itself for a minute. Because naturally, we don't give any attention to that. We're like, I'm drawing a person, I'm going to draw the person. And we don't stop and think about drawing between the person, between her arm and her hip or her waist, right? Okay. So, there's lots more. And I'm going to share some pieces with you that we actually looked at during the last video that we were looking at some designs by Katya Leonovich, who's a Russian designer in New York City. A lot of her stuff is her own fine art paintings printed on fabric, but here you get a sense of her design without print at all. But these are really strong examples of negative shape. Yeah? The cutouts in this dress, including the cutouts of the neckline. And then look at the hem. All those loose fringe, all that fringe is full of negative shape and cutout. And then this is her too. So look at the negative shapes between the buttons. Or the negative shape being, okay, let's focus for 1 second at these two models. There's each one of their necklines is a negative shape. One is like a, equilateral triangle. It's short and it's equal from shoulder to shoulder and everything. This one, equilateral. And then this triangle is much longer, it's deeper, and it even has rounded edges. Those are two very different negative shapes. And notice how they frame the face, how they play off, you know, the models, what they create on her. So depending on anyone's body type, you know, a different neckline, you know that. We all know this, right? We all know what necklines flatter us based on our shoulders and where our bust falls, high, low, right? A neckline that might look great on me won't look great on you. A neckline that you can wear won't look good on me, and vice versa, based on not just what other people think, but what we think, yeah? That's the most important one. Oh, just a second, let me see here. Doreen, is the jacket negative space on top of negative space? Ooh, because of the shape and piping. Yeah, the piping, right? So if this didn't have piping, we wouldn't see it much, huh? So I don't think there's a right or a wrong answer on that, but certainly a lot of food for thought, because every one of these triangles that's created is a negative shape. And then each side of the jacket is a negative shape. You know, here's one, here's the other. When a shape invades another shape, you know, what's left over is the negative shape. So negative shape can also be a great way to show overlapping. I don't even know if I answered your question because of the negative shape and piping. But like, I don't think there's a right or a wrong answer to it, as much as that your awareness of negative shape changes the way you see, you know, and think. So I never shared, I'm going to have another video where I talk just about the whole experience of creating the book. Oh God, I keep thinking of great things I have to tell you. Okay. But one of the things about the book was the challenge of finding enough images that were affordable to fill the book. So a bunch of it was going after former students or purchasing expensive images from Getty, and then a lot of it was Shutterstock, because Shutterstock was available, and some of it was contacting designers one by one, but then there was a lot of back and forth with permissions, and so there's a lot of challenges to pulling all that together in just a few months. So negative shape here is several things. It's where the vest reveals the cap sleeve, or the space where the skin appears between the glove and the sleeve, or how you have a shirt under the vest, over the skirt, and how each thing reveals different negative shapes. Because when you look at the vest, this is the negative shape. When you look at the shirt, the vest is the negative shape, etc. And this is a really interesting one, because negative shape kind of between her body and the silhouette that you can see through. That's an interesting one, right? Sorry about the glare. In order for me to have light on my face means I have to blind you with everything else. You just noticed the squares they were standing on, Patty. Okay, so let's shift gears for a second and talk about illustration, because that's what I had just wanted to do. So see the squares they're standing on? That could be the most amazing element for you to use in your sketches. Like, let's say you're sketching, you've already sketched some girls just by themselves. But if you have an inspiration image like this on hand, you can come back even with a very simple line and surround your model with line. And that will create depth and perspective and space on the page. That's kind of like super cool. You just got me crazy excited thinking about that. And another thing to think about is, if this is the block she's standing on, just notice all the negative shapes that make that block. So like, whenever you're drawing something, look at the thing you're drawing and then stop and completely revert your focus to what's around it. Because you are more likely to accurately see something that you cannot name or define than you are to accurately draw something you have already named and defined, because of your brain. Okay. I get excited about that, because it's those things we're not aware of that throw a monkey wrench in our process sometimes. And here's something else. All right. I love this one because you all know I love mixed prints. I love head wraps. I was very selfish. I wanted to be much more selfish in this book, but it's not called the language of Laura Volpintesta's fashion design. So I tried to be fair to everybody. I don't know. But I love pantsuits. Everybody probably knows that. Anyone who's ever been in my classes or anything. Okay, but this pantsuit has like a cutout. And then, you know, if you were drawing this, if you're able to see this scarf as only a shape by itself, etc., etc. There's a lot of ways negative shape plays out here, but mostly as cutouts. And that's probably, yeah, that's the end of that chapter here. So, but no, okay, there was something else I wanted to bring up that I didn't. Okay, so I'm going to bring it up now. Let me check the time really quick, because I have so much fun and get so excited that I literally have no concept whatsoever. It looks like it's 7:30 something. Okay, 35 minutes. It would be nice if I wore my glasses sometimes, but yeah. All right, let's take it to another level. How else can negative shape play out? So one, it's to shape around something. So if you really want to capture a silhouette, you could allow yourself, silhouette meaning, we have a whole chapter on that. We'll talk about it another day, but silhouette is like the shape of the dress and the shape of the outfit. Okay, but then once we start having, then we have invading the silhouette with cutouts such as neckline. Right? Hi, Sherry. I miss you. There are so many ways that you can cut into a garment. Like this could have just been a dress. But no, it's a vest and a skirt. And look at the cutaway in the vest. I mean, it literally creates another equilateral triangular. Hi, Paula, one of my Parsons sisters. So see this equilateral triangle? That's kind of funny because I had just mentioned equilateral triangle here. Remember this neckline? But this one's inverted and the other one is pointing upward. And what was my point about that? So look at the places where things, here's more triangles, where you could take shapes and invade your garment either by cutting out. Any of you who took my design infusion course, the sketching collection that we did on the very first night, that green and blue with gouache, we did a lot of cutouts in that series. You know, play with how you could take a very simple, very basic, not that it has to be, but why not? Tank top, caftan, something, and start cutting shapes out of the garment. It could be a really fun way to play with negative shape. Think of this. Let's say you have a caftan, a simple caftan. We have a whole video on that in Design Infusion too. If you catch this video anywhere else and you want links to any of these courses, let me know. Let's say you have a basic caftan and you decide to do a neckline and then you decide to scallop the hem. A scalloped hemline creates a negative shape. I mean, anything, any hemline is a negative shape, but when you scallop it, you're really adding a texture or a contour or a pattern, a design element to that. Hi, Paula. And it gives you a lot of freedom and excitement. And I love that I put fringe here, and to think how, see how the garment feels solid, and here the garment is like fluid. And that's created by all of this fine negative shape. It even adds a tonality. This white dress becomes a different color down here. Visually, it's so changed by all of those skin-colored negative shapes. So when you fine-tune your eye to all these things, it just changes the way you see, changes the way you draw. Oh my, OMG, look at her shoes. and all the, the negative shape between the straps. Or if we flip our eyes back to forget the dress and only look at her skin, what do we see? What do we see if we try to draw her and we don't draw the dress? We only draw her skin. Okay? That kind of thing. And here's the thing about taking a class in anything. How often do you look at pictures of clothes? Yay! We look at pictures all the time. We look at pictures of anything. But sometimes when you take a class or you have a project or an assignment or an exercise, you actually sit with that image and take that extra minute to look at it more. Back to the beginning where we talked about symbols. You look around you, tree, cloud, fence, flower pot, chair, person. We're so quick, both because of our language and because of our eager brain that we talked about earlier. We are so quick to symbolize and simplify things. It's even why we're judgmental and why we are, why we stereotype even or whatever. It's kind of a gut instinct, but it will hold you back every time. In fact, naming things and symbolizing things takes you out of the present moment. Because when you become present to a present moment, you start to capture all the wonder of all the things. And you become fully entrenched and aware. Like now I'm looking at this plant outside and I know what a maple leaf looks like. I think this is like a baby maple tree, but as I'm watching, starting to notice every single leaf. And it's such a gift. Of course, Carlos comes on when I'm getting spiritual and philosophical. It's the law of attraction. So, to really see. It's so beautiful to get the opportunity to really see. And so one of the things we're going to wrap up soon. So one other exercise, anytime we have a drawing exercise in the class, one that I particularly love is a lot of times I'll have a flat sketching exercise where we take a simple garment, we lay it on the table, and then we draw it and we capture all the details. And the beauty of it is that there's no model involved. Thanks, Patty. Right? So you're looking at the garment, you're drawing it, but because you have to, because it's an assignment, you actually stop and look at the darn thing. You think we even do that with ourselves or our neighbors or our kids? Sometimes we just gotta stop and look at the thing and it will start to sing to you. Thank you. Right, so and then you start to be like, sometimes I'll be like, so many times at work I had to draw a shirt or whatever and put it on the table, draw it like it is, but it always starts to sing, especially when you love something. So to me, garments, I like people. They tell stories, they start out looking so dumb, but when you get into them, you start to notice, oh, wow, look how I didn't even notice that stitching in there. And isn't that an interesting way that they did the tag? And, this armhole isn't like all the other armholes. Never occurred to me. The more time you spend giving some loving attention to something, the more it reveals its mysteries to you. And so, Karen. Hi, Karen. I miss you. I'm glad you're here. Just say hi. So, if nothing else you got from today's class, I think there's a lot in here today about perception. Okay, negative shape is a design term. It's a fashion design term. It's a drawing term. Oh, there was one last tidbit, one last morsel that I wanted to include about this. So I'm going to bring it back. Changing perception. Looking not at the thing, but looking only around it. And then the other one is just to really sit with something and truly see it. And then what I wanted to say to you, and I'll use these two girls, when you start doing groups of fashion sketches, because I know some of you are in my courses and you're presenting sets of illustrations, it's always really interesting to observe the shapes between models. And so how they interplay. It's much, 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 much more challenging to draw two people on the page, particularly in the beginning, or particularly if it's live and you want them to be proportional to each other. It can be really challenging to draw two people at a time. But once you do, you have established a relationship, an energy on the page. The energy of relationship is powerful, and it becomes dynamic, and it becomes storytelling. I mean, they could just look like they're ignoring each other. They could be ignoring each other, but oftentimes you'll find there's a really beautiful play between. So, the shapes between their own legs, but then the shapes that exist between each of them. And then the places where they overlap. And then I'm having a lot of trouble with the light. Sorry, guys. So in this one, if you had to draw these two women, yeah, it's great to draw their heads and their bodies and their dresses, but it's also really important to look at the shape between the two of them. This little black shape right here. Study it, observe it. Let it give you the clues you need, because you are more likely, as I said, to draw the shape of the non-thing accurately than you are to draw the thing accurately, because you are so busy trying to draw the symbol of the thing. Okay, so I want to open up for questions about anything or about negative shape. I think we have like a few more minutes. Thoughts about negative shape, maybe favorite designers who use negative shape. Didn't Courage, remember Courage, that like mod styling, didn't he use a lot of strong shapes and negative shapes? I'm trying also to think of maybe of artists who use, let's see. All right, hang on, I'm gonna grab something while we're here. So, this one's always hanging, so I often pull it out during live streams, but what a fascinating subject we had today. Oh, I'm so glad. Thanks for the feedback, because I always think I'm boring everyone to tears. Just notice the shapes between all these models. I think not only shapes between them, but like the shapes between the head and the arm, or the shapes between the legs. Being aware of those shapes helps me draw them. Less detail is more substance. It's interesting you say that, because lately I'm working with like almost nothing but shape. I would think lace is negative shape to the max. The interesting thing with lace is it's negative shape, and it's also very much, what's the word? It's negative shape, but it's this full of micro shapes. There were a lot of strong shapes in the 60s, yes. And do you or don't you agree, perhaps solid colored fabrics, garments made of solid color, have more obvious shape than if it's broken up like by lace or by a print? Because lace is also a pattern. Lots of shapes in the 60s. Doreen says, would color blocking, yes, would fall into negative shape, yes. And it was so interesting in the creating of the book how everything was everything. You know, sometimes I'd find an image I loved and I just didn't even know what chapter to put it in. I mean, look at the cover. Right? You have the gray cover, you have the model. As the model invades the cover, you get this really strong negative shape. And I love this. Look at this. By the way, I didn't pick the cover photo. Not only did I not pick it, but whoever did picked an image that cost like hundreds of dollars and cut into my budget like massively. So I hope you'll like the cover. But like, look at this negative shape. You may not think of it as negative shape, but look how you have one hem corner, and then look at that second hem. I mean, okay, you got to be like a serious fashion nerd to get excited about that, but like those things, those are the things, the awareness. And then like the legs are always going to be a negative shape if they're visible. Or gosh, jeez. If you're trying to draw hands, a great trick, a great tip is not to try to draw all the fingers. Draw the red dress. Draw everything but the fingers. Let me just zoom in without my glasses. I meant paying attention to pure negative space as opposed to facial or other particular aspects. Now, Carlos, just to see if I understand you. Oh, I just opened to page 111. It's a nice number. Okay, if I go to this, is this what you mean, Carlos? And I'm really glad you said it because in my Freedom Fashion program and illustration classes, one of the massive things we constantly do, which I didn't even talk about from this photo, is there are no lines here, only shapes. Because, like I said at the very opening, lines, we already start to feel like we're writing. A sharp pencil on a white piece of paper already makes us feel like we better be perfect. There's a lot of pressure there, right? But here, there are no lines. This is nothing but shape. And you see that you and me both, we know what this is. Hi, Cheryl. We know we get a lot more information from this than we do from a painstakingly drawn pencil drawing that's more about what we know we should be seeing than what we really see. And so I use solid shape and absence of line so much in the beginning to dismantle our attachment to perfection and line. And so you can think about this three-dimensionally too, because fashion really is not a two-dimensional art form. Two-dimensional is like drawing, line. Right? Fashion is sculpture. It's actually 3D. I mean, we often draw it from front and back, but it's not cookie cutter. It's not flat, ever. So, I also like to really ingrain that you think about everything you're making as if you were making it from clay. Like literally, if you want to draw, I highly suggest you buy a lump of some cheap clay and sculpt something before you draw it. Try to create it in 3D so that when you draw, you're always thinking of something as molded in your hand. It also gives you more options for designing. Yes, because when you simplify, you get immediate impact. You can always get the detail later. So, macro versus micro. Macro detail. And it's amazing the things that show up later when you're not thinking. Like, I made these earrings out of bracelets from Bangladesh that my neighbor gave me. Never occurred to me that they were going to be echoing this neckline, nor that this would be a smaller scale of a circle, this would be a larger scale, or this would be a whole circle, this would be a half of a circle, and that these look like lines, but they're really circles. When you stop, when you slow down and engage, everything starts to dance. I said sing before. Thank you, Karen. And it's funny, I just said the word sing, and Karen's here, and she's a singer. And so, honestly, I've been teaching fashion for 20 years. I know tons about fashion, but my real goal is always to get to that other stuff with you. Presence, joy, peace, knowing, beauty, connections, order of things, because we need that in today's world. And the more happy fashion designers we have, the less depressing the fashion industry will look. You have a wonderful way of seeing so much. Thank you. Thank you. You're a great teacher. Subconsciously chose you look. I agree. Thank you. It's nothing without you guys, because otherwise, I'm just sitting here having a good time and worrying about bills. It's much more fun to engage with you all. I love you. We're going to do another one soon because my daughter's away this week. It just makes it super easy. It's much quieter and I can focus. So let's do, I'd be happy to take suggestions below for other items. And if there's any classes I mentioned that you're interested in, or if you have friends you want to send this to, it's going to be up for at least a week. The circles, isn't that cool? And another cool thing about the human body is everything is round. Like my hand isn't, but every bit of my arm is. It's just always changing, right? It's either elliptical or circular. Thank you for your inspiration too, Doreen, and every one of you. Whenever I do a live stream, I'm like, oh my gosh, I get so much gratitude for the people I know, the people in my life. I really appreciate you shining your light in my world. Let me know what chapter you would like to do next, and I can't wait to see you again soon. Thank you. Bye.